Hello and good afternoon, my dear kids. Welcome back once again to this short tutorial video for class 8 students. Since we're dealing with the geometric section of the geometric section in your for your mathematics, so in this video we'll be learning about circles. Okay, so first of all, we'll learn about circles, and then few parts of the circles, what are the important terms related to circles and all, and then we'll proceed accordingly. Okay, so first of all, while defining the circle, okay, as you can see, a circular figure, round circular figure is a circle, isn't it? A simple round circular figure is a circle. So that's why definition also I have given the given the simple definition. Say a circle is a closed curve, all of whose points are at a constant distance from a point in the same plane. The fixed point is called the center of the circle, and the constant distance is called the radius of the circle. That means, say simple, a closed figure is known as your circle. Okay, and this point in here, that is the midpoint within the circular figure, is known as your center. Okay, and why I'm calling this a midpoint is because, see, if you make a line segment and join it with the circumference, and remember this part, that is the boundary, it's known as its circumference of the circle. Okay, the boundary is known as its circumference of the circle. So as you know that how a circle is being formed, isn't it? That is, I've already told you about point and how all geometrical figures are made up of points, isn't it? So again here also the same basic continues, that is, see, a circle also consists of many points, isn't it? It's all about point lining up together in a circular form to make a circle, isn't it? So from a center, if you draw a line segment joining any 2 points, any one point on the circumference, remember the boundary part is known as its circumference. Okay, whenever you draw a line segment from the center joining a point in the circumference, that line will be known as its radius. See, that's why, see, it's written that, and the constant distance is called the radius of circle. And why it is called a constant distance is because for a circle, see, like for example, for this circle, see, this one, again I have drawn second line, isn't it? So here I have drawn third line, here I have drawn fourth line. So in that way I can draw infinite numbers of lines in here, isn't it? That is the radius. See, a line segment joining center and a point on the circumference of the circle is known as your radius, as I've already told you that. And see, you can draw infinite numbers of lines, isn't it? See, since I have drawn just 4 in here, here also you can draw here, isn't it? So you can draw infinite number of lines in here. So see, even though you draw infinite numbers of lines for a particular circle, the distance, that is the length from the center to the point on the circumference, will be equal. That is why it's known as constant circle, constant radius. Okay, for a circle, remember, for a particular circle, that is not just particular, for one circle, if you draw one circle, say, because the circle may depend on size, isn't it? You can draw smaller circle also, you can draw bigger circle also. So for this particular circle that I have drawn, if you draw infinite number of radius, that is a line joining radius to the point on the circumference of the circle, you may draw infinite number of lines, and if you measure all those lines, then the length, that is the measure of the length, will be equal. Okay, that is why it's known as constant radius for a circle, remember. And if I draw a bigger circle, so for that bigger circle also the radius will be same. If I draw a smaller circle, for that smaller circle, but remember, for two circles it may vary. Okay, the radius may vary for two different circles, but for one circle, okay, if you draw infinite number of radius for a particular circle, then all the radius will be equal. Okay, so okay, so the next one in here is, now let's go with the parts of the circles. So circumference. So here for circumference, the definition I have given is the measure of the boundary length of a circle is known as its circumference. Okay. So for the next one we have here circumference. So the circumference, the measure of the boundary length of a circle is known as its circumference. So see, what I want to tell you about a circumference is, suppose for example, if you have taken a thread of 1 meter long, okay, suppose if you have taken a thread of 1 meter long, and you have placed the thread in such a way that it is circular in shape, okay, you have placed the thread in such a way that it is circular in the shape. So, and if I ask you, then what is the measure of the length of the boundary of that circle that you have made with the thread, then obviously your answer will be 1 meter, isn't it? So that is actually the length of the boundary. It's known as its circumference. Now see, these are very important terms, okay, so you need to write it down as well as you had to memorize it as well, okay. So the second one, circumference, I hope you understood, okay. Now the third one is a chord. Okay, so what do we know, what actually is a chord is? A chord is a line segment, okay, a line segment joining any 2 points on the circumference of this circle. Excuse me. So like I have drawn here, see, I have drawn a circle and I have pointed a center as well, with dot with O, center with O, okay. Then what I have done here is I have drawn a line segment joining 2 points on the circumference of the circle. You see, this line segment AB is known as its chord, okay, is known as the chord of this circle. Why? Because it's a line segment joining 2 points on the circumference of the circle, okay. Now next comes a segment. See, for a segment, a chord of a circle divides the two parts, divides the circle into two parts, which are called segments. The smaller part is called the minor segment and the larger part is called the major segment. Like for example, if there is a circular paper, okay, and you have what you are doing is you are cutting the circular paper into two halves, not from the middle exactly, okay. Suppose for example, you have cut it in the portion 75 to 25. Let's just assume you have cut this circular paper into two halves, that is 75% and 25%. So okay, so now let's see here. What do we have here? We got a center with O, a chord AB, see, a line segment joining two parts of circle. Now what this chord has done is it has divided the circle into two parts, isn't it? The larger part and the smaller part. See, now the larger part in here is known as your major segment, okay, and the smaller part in here is known as your minor segment, okay. So remember, a chord divides a circle into two parts, that is a major segment and a minor segment. What is a chord? A chord is a line segment joining any 2 points on the circumference of a circle, okay. Okay, now after that comes an arc. Now see about an arc. An arc is a curved line which is part of the circumference. So remember, an arc is a curved line which is part of the circumference. The smaller part is called the minor arc and the larger part is called the major arc. Like for example, if I have taken 2 points on the circle, now see here we don't have any line segment, remember that, okay. Here we don't have it. If we consider, like for example, as I have in the given like the example I have given you at the first, what did I told you? I told you that suppose if you have taken 1 meter thread and placed it in a circular position, at that time the circumference will be the circumference, isn't it? So now after that what you have done is you have again what you have cut the thread into two parts, okay. Like after placing it in circular form, you have cut the thread, okay, into two parts. Now see the smaller thread, the smaller part, okay, here it's not about a line segment, remember the arc, okay. So if you cut the arc into two parts, what you will get is you will get a smaller arc and you will get a bigger arc. So similarly here, the smaller arc is known as minor arc and the bigger arc is known as your major arc. Remember, arc is not about a line segment, it's the exact shape it will remain in the shape of the circle. This is that what you have done here, you have just cutted the circumference and take it out, okay, like the thread, okay. So this one is about arc. And yeah, now we have a diameter. So see, for diameter, now this one is very important, okay. The diameter, the definition is given as a chord which passes through the center. Now see, a diameter is a chord which passes through the center. Like if I have joined 2 points on the circumference of a circle and which passes through the center, actually what was the definition of the chord? a line segment joining two points on the circumference of a circle, isn't it? So now if that line passes through the center, at that time that line will also be known as diameter. Okay, it's a chord, but at that time, particularly that time when it passes through the center, it will be known as your diameter as well. Okay, in that way we can say the diameter is the longest chord of the circle as well. Okay, now for diameter, now see why this is important is because see diameter. Now first see in this figure what I have done here is I have drawn a circle. I have shown you the diameter, that is the chord, isn't it? Now what has happened here is actually see from center to any point on the circumference. Suppose if I have hidden this part, okay, simple, I'm showing you OA. So actually OA, what is OA? OA is the radius, isn't it? From center to any part of the circumference. See, a line segment joining center to any part of. Similarly, if I hide this part and show you OB, then actually this one is also a radius, isn't it? So what do I see in here is actually a diameter consists of two radius, isn't it? So that is why I have written here, see diameter equals to AO plus OB. In this case, can I write it as AO plus OB? Yes, I can, isn't it? Now actually what is AO? AO is a radius, isn't it? As I have explained you. Similarly, OB is a radius. So see, radius plus radius. Now radius plus radius, 2 into radius. So in that way, see, this is how we derive the formula also. Okay, so diameter can be written as 2 into radius. Okay, now if I need to figure out radius, so radius will be equal to 2 goes to other side, it divides diameter, isn't it? So 2 equals to half into diameter. Okay, now this is very important one formula. Okay, diameter, because sometimes you will be given diameter while calculations in the calculation part. Okay, sometimes you will be given diameter, you need to figure out the radius. So how will you do that? You will simply use this formula. That is, see, whenever the diameter is given and you need to figure out the radius, so all you need to do is just divide the diameter with 2. That is what it means, isn't it? Half into diameter. And if you are given with the radius and you need to figure out the diameter of this circle, then what are you supposed to do? You are simply supposed to multiply the radius with 2 in order to get the diameter. Okay, that is why it's important. And in most of the calculations, we'll be using diameter and radius. That's why I said this term is important. Okay, diameter. The others are also important, but most of the times we'll be using these two. Okay, diameter and radius in the calculations part and all. Okay, now okay, moving on to the next topic. What we have here is now an important property of a chord. Now see, this property is very important because after this in the next video we'll be dealing with a few theorems or that is sums related to the circles, on where we'll be using this property. Okay, important property of a chord. So see, the perpendicular from the center of a circle to a chord bisects the chord. Now the term bisects, remember what does the term bisect means? Bisect means it divides equally into two halves, isn't it? Bisect means it divides equally into two halves. So see, the perpendicular from the center of a circle to a chord bisects the chord, or vice versa. Vice versa means similarly opposite to that. Okay, like other way around, not opposite to that, other way around. The perpendicular from the center, that is, what does perpendicular means? It means 90 degree, isn't it? So let's see the figure, it will be easier for you. Now see, what I've done here is I've drawn a figure, circle with center O, and I've drawn a chord. Now see, AB is our chord. A perpendicular from the center of a circle to a chord. Suppose if there is a line from the center to a chord and that line is perpendicular, that's what it states. See, suppose if there is a chord and we have a line from center to the chord and that line is perpendicular to the chord, then at that time what happens is the chord is been bisected. Bisected means, as I said, equally divided into two halves. The chord is been bisected into two parts. That is why, see, if it is perpendicular, then AC, see, the point of perpendicular is C, as you can see here. It's C, isn't it? Where it has formed perpendicular. That time what happens is the chord is been bisected into two halves, that is equal into two equal halves. So AC will be equal to CB in here. Vice versa means, suppose if there is a line that from the center that divides the chord into two halves, at that time we can say the line is perpendicular. Okay, it's just like the other way around. Okay, I hope you kids understood today's lesson. Okay, So stay tuned in for more updates. Till then, stay safe, take care, bye bye.